How are you doing today? I'm Allison. I am the Family Connections self-care coach, and I would love it if you could say hi as you're jumping on. Let me know that you're here. I can't really tell who I'm talking to until I see some comments, so that's really helpful. Otherwise, I'm kind of just up here talking to myself. So let me know if you're on. Say hi if you're here. Again, if you're just jumping on, my name's Allison, and I'm one of Amanda's coach in her group. Hi, Michelle. Awesome. And if you don't make it live, go ahead and say hi on the replay. Give me a hashtag replay if you're here on the replay. Hi, Sandy. We know obviously people see this at different times of the day. If you are on live, I have a request for you, okay? I want you to engage with me. I've been seeing you do this all week with Amanda, and it's totally awesome. This is how we communicate best with you guys. So engage with me. Give me your favorite emojis. Hi, Kimberly. And here's the biggest thing that I want from you, okay? The thing that I want from you is when I say words, what comes out of my mouth is different from what goes into your brain. So there's always a little bit of a difference there. So what I say and what you hear me say sometimes have some differences in how we filter it. So what I want to know in the comments, as you hear me say things, I want you to repeat it back to me. There's a couple reasons for this, okay? Hi Denise, hi Milena, hi. There's a couple reasons for this. One, it lets me know that that you're tracking with me, right? Like my words are making sense to you, and it's something that you can understand and comprehend. Two, it helps you to actually take that information and move it into a part of your brain that's going to use it. A lot of times we hear things, and the term "in one ear and out the other" is there for a reason, because a lot of times we'll hear things, but we don't necessarily completely get it like into our brain like we really get it. So typing those things out when something's like, oh, aha, I want you to type it out, because that will also help you to solidify it. And let me know if my video is glitchy at all, because I feel like my computer is chopping up a little bit, and I certainly don't want any of that. So let me know if you have any issues seeing me or hearing me. Let me know in the comments. That's how we'll do this communication thing. You get to see my face. I get to see your little faces in the comments, and that's how we're going to do this, okay? All right, so welcome as you all come on. So Amanda has talked about so much this week, right? so much good stuff that she has given to you guys. So my job today is to kind of further cement one particular area that I think everything really comes down to, okay? So this is like my favorite thing in the whole world to talk about. It gets me really jazzed and really energized, because it's really, really powerful. So this idea of peace, and how do we experience peace in our life? How do we grab onto that calm and centered life, right? So I want to draw something out for you first, because I'm a drawer, and it's what I have to do. I use whiteboards. It's how we do. So here, this circle right here, that's you, okay? All of these circles around you are all the people in your life, all the areas of touch points of how you interact your life outside of you, right? So we've got your kids. That's obviously like a huge one we've all been talking about this week. Your kids and all of their fun things they bring into our life. And we have your spouse, yeah, or a partner, or whoever it is that you're doing this life with. We have the extended families, right? We have family, maybe in-laws. Sorry if it's messy. We have work, right? Our coworkers. We have our friends. All the touch points, the acquaintances, our online friends, maybe all the people, all the points of connection outside of us all of these all around us all the time. And what we usually do, what most people do in this life, is we think that if I can get all of these things to line up in their nice little ducks and rows, right? and in a way that fits the script of my mind of how life is supposed to work, if I can get all of those to look the way I think life should look, then I'm going to feel peace. And I'm going to feel calm. And I'm going to have a life that's like, okay, yeah, I want to do this life. This is a fun life. This feels good to me. Everybody's doing what I expect, right? But I think we all know in the bottom of our brains that we cannot expect to find peace from all those things, or even some of them, honestly. And I think that's what some of us do, is we're like, okay, so not all of the things can line up to how I want it to be. But some of them, right? Like my spouse should be on the same page as me. My friends, right, should have this certain type of interaction with me. And we feel like all the things around us in life are the things that are going to create or increase our ability to feel good in our life, our ability to feel calm and feel peace. This is just kind of how our brains work. We think that this is how life works, right? But the thing is, this is one of the very first things that I ever learned in all my years of therapy, is that when there's chaos around, right? When none of the ducks line up, none of the rows are there. It's squirrels in a rave, right? There are no ducks, there are no rows. This is my life, right? When it's that crazy tornado and chaos, if we think, if I could just get all those pieces in place and in order, then I'm going to be okay here in the middle, that's actually a very unhealthy way to live. It's actually something that's going to pull us down into more chaos internally. It's when we can stand in the middle of the storm with all of the chaos, right? All of the tornado going around us, all of the people not acting how we think they should, or not interacting with us how we think we should, or we don't feel like we're getting what we should get from our relationships or from our life. It's when all that madness is happening around us, when we can stand right in the middle and we can say, I'm okay. I'm okay right here. This is my calm space. I'm okay here. That is an incredibly healthy place to be. That's where the abundant life mindset actually works. That's where we start to realize, like, oh, it doesn't matter. Like all these things outside of me, it doesn't actually matter, because I have everything I need right here in my circle, in my space. I'm good. I'm good right here. Even if it isn't like other people say, oh, well, how could you be good with all this stuff? You're like, I'm okay. I'm all right. So that's peace, okay? That's peace. And the beautiful and amazing part about this is that is the only place where we have any power. This place right here, our life, our circle around us, the things that belong in our realm of ownership are the only things that we have any power over. And they are also the only things that will make us feel like a peaceful and centered life. So we have the material for everything we need. It's already there. And you've been hearing Amanda talk about this, right? She's touched on this at all different points this week, is that it always comes down to, where am I right now? How am I right now? How can I take care of what's inside my ownership circle right now? If you're jumping on right now, go ahead and say hi to me. I want to see your face, see as you're coming on. And I'm going to say this one more time. If you're coming on now, I want you to put thoughts that you hear me say that resonate with you or aha moments, I want you to put them into the comments, because that's how we can do this as an actual interaction. I can see what's resonating, or I can see maybe if there's confusion about anything that I say. And also it's really good for you because it helps you take the information and put it deeper into your brain and not just be at a surface level. Okay? Does that sound good? Say hi as you're coming on. I always want to see you. And let me know if there's any technical stuff going on, because I still feel like my screen's glitching at me, but I'm not going to be able to do anything about that. It's outside of my circle. All right. So tell me, does what I just said resonate with you? Do you understand this? Tell me what you think about that. Give me some fire. Can I have some fire? Yeah, if this makes sense. Hi guys. Hi Patty. Hi Gabby. Hi Connie. Hi guys. Hello. Yay. Okay, so if what I've said so far makes sense to you, give me some fire emojis. I want to know if this makes sense, because this is going to be the basis of what I'm talking about today. And if we're not clear on this, I want to know. Because here's the thing, guys. Like, this has been the most powerful, transformative information that I have ever learned. And I have had years of trauma and therapy. Okay, so this stuff is incredible. It is totally incredible. It can change your life. Okay, so what we need to know, yes, fire. What we need to know is how do we do that? Because I feel like we kind of come our whole life with this childlike mindset of what's outside of me is what dictates me, right? This is actually completely normal in how it is to be raised as a human, by the way. So if there's any shame around that, or thought like, oh man, like why is this so hard? It's because you were trained in this. Like, you were literally conditioned to say, what are those people saying? Okay, this is how this affects me. This is how I respond, right? But now it's time to step into your adult self and say, no, like, I don't need to be that way. I don't need to have your responses and your words completely take over me as I have been in my life, right? That's I don't have to do that. I'm in control of my life. I have that power. So then it's just a matter of, how do we grab onto that power? How do we say, okay, if this is my self space, right? Like, this is where all my ownership comes down to. This is where all my personal peace comes down to. This is where all my joy is generated. How do I do that? Right? That's like the big question. Like, how? If we've been learning these other ways of coping our entire life, how do we get to a point where we're like, oh, I can generate. I can be the source, the power source, which, by the way, overflows into all these things and makes you like the elevating factor of your entire life and changes all the people around you. That's the crazy part about it, right? Amanda's been talking about that. It's insane. So what I'm going to talk about today is how we view our circle. But I wanted to make sure that we're all very clear from the get-go how important this is, right? How crucial this is. Okay, so I like to think about this in two different ways, okay? We have our substance on the inside of our circle, right? This is like everything about us, right? It's like our feelings, our thoughts, our behaviors, our attitudes, our deep, dark stories, our dreams and our wishes, our wants, like all the things that relate to us as a human being. This is inside of this. This is our domain. This is our ownership. So that's the substance inside the circle. And then we have the perimeter. This line right here. And this is where a lot of us get like stuck, because we don't understand how to think about that line. But this line right here is all about boundary skills, right? It's all about, how do I see the separation of me and someone else. How do I separate that in an appropriate way? How do I, overlap slightly in an appropriate way? How do I think about them versus me? What's mine? What's theirs? How to say no. Most of us have not practiced our no muscle very well, and it's very, very hard sometimes to understand, how do I have a boundary that's calm, that's clear, that's protective. This is protective of you, but it's also protective of your relationship, because your relationship is dependent on how you're able to contain the love for them. And if they're always stepping over their boundaries, that's really, really hard, right? So our boundary lines are super important. Our boundary lines and it's like how we connect with ourselves inside of our circle, and then how do we connect with everything outside of ourselves, the lines between us and them. That's like the foundational essence of this space, okay? So in here, the goal is to get to a place of mindful and intentional existence, okay? Mindful and intentional existence. What we do inside here is how we have the life we want to have. No matter what anybody else is doing. Literally, it doesn't matter. I think I heard a statistic one time that's like 95% of our life and how we, the kind of quality of life that we have, is dictated by our circumstances, which is everything outside of us. Or 95% is not dictated by our circumstances. It's totally said it backwards. Only 5% is. Only 5%, which means everything inside here, 95% of our quality of life is dependent on us and how we see it. Okay? All right. So I'm not going to talk about like all the things inside of our space today, because there's not time. And this is the kind of stuff that that you really want to walk through with somebody, because we all kind of have our own things, right? So, but I am going to talk about three main things that if you start with these three main things, you'll see how incredibly powerful this is. Okay? So they are our thoughts, all right? Our feelings, and our actions. Our thoughts, our feelings, and our actions. All right. So first, I'm going to start with feelings because I'm a feeler. This is how I came to any of this information, is I'm a total, I feel things. I don't always know what I'm thinking. Some people are thinkers and action takers, right? And they can see those right away. I am the kind of person who always goes towards what in the world am I feeling? Either I'm feeling good or I'm feeling bad. Okay? So I'm going to start with the feelings. When we think about our feelings and how to exist in our own circle, in our own space with peace, the first thing that we can think about is how am I feeling externally, right? What is my physical body feeling? And this is the place where Amanda has just so, I love everything she does, because it's it taps into that external physical presence, right? It taps into how is my physical body taking space in this world? And a lot of us, for me personally, I had, it's funny to learn all of Amanda's stuff, because I'm kind of I don't think I had any self-space awareness until I was much older, right? I just had no concept of my physical space in this world. So this idea of our external space, how am I being right now? How am I feeling in this world? What are the sensations that I'm feeling? Where are the tension points? I love the word tension. Pay attention to the tension, because a lot of times if we don't exactly know, we know we don't feel good, we know something's going on, but we don't exactly know why, just look for how are you standing right now? Or how are you sitting? How are you holding your body? Because it can actually tell you a whole lot. And one of the things that I realized I did a lot of my life is I was I lived in this sort of hunched position. It was like I was trying to protect myself, right? I was like making myself small because I was scared. I had so much fear all the time. So now I'm so in tune to this. And anytime that my shoulders are kind of like this and I'm like really, really tight and like my neck or something like that, I'm like, oh, something's going on. Something internally is happening because I can physically see it and feel it. I can physically feel it. And the other beautiful part about this is that we can change so much, and Amanda's talked about a lot about this. We can change so much with simply adjusting our physical body and how we're feeling there. She talked about how you smile and how that can change things. It's true. It's a true fact. Our body and our minds are so in sync. It's crazy. So whenever I find myself kind of doing this, right, and I'm like, because there's something that's bothering me, I'm very intentional, even before I figure out what's going on inside. Even before then, I change my posture, right? So I take a power stance. I straighten out my back, I stick out my chest, and I'm like, no, I'm in charge of my life. Thank you very much. Right? And just doing that is super, super powerful. We can tap into so much of what's going on inside of us and how we even, like, before we even talk to anybody else, before we even move into any other space in our life, we can tap into so much just by taking back how we're feeling externally and taking charge of that, right? This is all about taking charge, taking ownership. All right, the second thing of the feelings is what we're feeling internally. So we have what we're feeling externally, and then we have what we're feeling internally, all right? And what's going on internally are always come down to needs and wants, right? Always. Like, we all have base needs and base desires that are part of our humanity, that are how we are wired. It's one of the most important things about your design of your uniqueness. Your needs and your wants are important to look at. And I think a lot of the times, I know a lot of the times because I've talked to so many moms, so many times moms have this thing that's sort of like embedded in us in culture that's like, don't look at your needs, don't look at your wants, you're here for other people, right? And so much of the time, that's the kind of thought process that we act out of. And so then what happens is that those needs and those wants get unmet, right? And you've heard Amanda talk about this week. This is super important. Those needs and those wants go unmet. And because they are a base internal part of our DNA, they don't go away. Instead, they turn us into desperate seekers to fill the gaps, right? So everything that we do then becomes this process of like, please meet my need, please meet my want. But usually it's like, it doesn't come across in a way that's helpful, right? It comes across in a way that's like, why aren't you, like, accusing? Like, how are you, why aren't you treating me this way? Like, why aren't you doing this for me? Why are you doing this to me? It's because it's the inside needs and wants of you that are built into your programming that are going unmet. But remember, we don't look outside of us. Even with our spouse or with our kids or with our friends, we don't look outside of us to meet our needs. We can have people, we can feel love from people, but we can only ever really experience our own internal understanding of what other people are doing. So whenever anybody's like, but I do love you and I am doing these things for you, and you're like, but I'm not feeling it, it's not because they're doing something they shouldn't do, or not doing something they should do. I mean, obviously, I'm talking about any kind of abuse is like a totally different subject matter. So I'm not talking about that. But I am talking about our needs and our wants always come down to how are we addressing, seeing, and understanding our own needs and wants, and how are we stepping into the role of supplying that for ourselves? Because it always comes down to like, how am I looking at my life in a way where I can make a choice for me instead of putting it outside of me. When I put it outside of me, I lose all my power. Because what happens as soon as they're like not doing exactly how we think it's supposed to work, right? That's handing over your power. You want your power back. You take these things back for yourself. You take the ownership of yourself and the things that you feel externally, internally. You take ownership of that and you make choices and decisions that move you in the direction of meeting those. Does that make sense? Yeah? I'm going to stop and read the comments for just a second. Give me some hearts if that makes sense to you. Jen, any suggestions for when you are trying so hard to be positive and have peace within yourself, but you have someone that constantly just drains it from you, just being around them and their negativity? Okay, so here's the thing, Jen. That is still in your realm of ownership, because that has more to do with you and your choice of being next to things than it does. You can't control them, right? Like, you can't control their negativity. You can't control how they're acting or what they're doing or how they're interacting with you. You can't control any of that. You cannot. And whenever we think that we can, it just makes us, it's so depressing because we can't. It's like a law of life. We can only control ours. So what we can do is we can control our space in between, right? This is what boundaries is about. We can control whether or not we choose to be close to this negativity or not. We can control, like, okay, how am I going to interact with this person? And what are the thoughts that I'm going to hold in my head when I do interact with this person? This is the really powerful thing that I'm going to get to next, okay? Because that person, as soon as we switch it from saying, that person is making me feel this, and instead saying, I'm feeling this, how can I change what I'm feeling? What do I need to add distance to? What boundaries do I need to put in place? How can I interact differently? That's the power stance. That's where we take back control of that. And this is one of those things that I can only touch on right now, right? This is why mentorship is so important, because we all have we all have such specific things that we're like, okay, but this is me and my life, and this is what's happening with that person in my life, and I don't know what to do. And I learned all these tools, but I don't know how to translate them. That's why it's so important to actually hold someone's hand through it. That's like the top level surface though, Jen, and I hope that answered some of those questions. That's like that's the theoretical on paper. This is how you handle that stuff. So then it's just a matter of okay, how do I actually walk through this situation? That's where you need mentorship. All right, so we're gonna move from feelings and we're gonna go to our thoughts. Okay, so our thoughts are my favorite thing. These are my favorite thing because there is crazy power in our thoughts, right? And I'm going to kind of skim the surface here. But our thoughts have the power to make us feel and act completely differently. So all of these things can connect, right? They all can connect to each other, but the thoughts are like the driving force. So when we look at our mind and we think about what we're thinking about our thoughts. There's two different parts of the brain, right? There is the subconscious, which is generating all of our unintentional thoughts, which is making us feel all kinds of ways and act all kinds of ways. And then there's the conscious level of our brain, which has all of our intentional thoughts, where we know that they're there. We know the thought's there, and we can pinpoint it, right? So here's the beautiful thing about this. Our subconscious brain has thoughts in it from since we were born. Okay, it is a huge iceberg underneath the water. Tons and tons of stuff is going on inside of our subconscious brain. Those thoughts are generating so much of your quality of life, so much of how you see your life, so much of how you interact with other people. It's it's like the base of it all, actually. But what we don't realize a lot of the times is that a lot of those thoughts are even there. Like we don't even know. Because when they're in subconscious, they're not at a level of us being like, oh, there's that thought. It's just something below the surface that we're acting out of. So we need to bring our thoughts into the conscious level of our brain, because when it's in the conscious level of our brain, that's when it's malleable. It's like that's when it becomes clay and you're like, let me work with this to see if it can look a little bit differently. Let me see if it can maybe look like this. Does that make me feel differently? Maybe it can look like this. Does that make me feel differently? I'm an artist by background, so I love this idea of sculpting our thoughts, right? So we can literally, once we bring thoughts into our conscious, we can literally sculpt our thoughts and give ourselves a completely different trajectory of our life. It's totally true. It's totally true. So that's the two parts of the thoughts: our unintentional thoughts and our intentional thoughts. So what we want to do to find peace is we want to, again, find the tension points, find the places that are making you not what you want, or making you feel not what you want. And even if it's like, oh, it's because of that person, whatever it is, you need to try to bring it up to the conscious level of your mind, okay? Because if you're bringing that up to the conscious level of your mind, then you can actually start to put real eyes on it. And then you can get other people's eyes on it, because a lot of the times these thoughts that we've lived with for our entire life, as soon as you bring in someone with a little bit more expertise who's been down this road before, they're like, I know what's happening here. I know what's going on with that thought. Do you want to change it? I can tell you how. And you can actually change your brain. Did you guys know? I think Amanda's talked about this. You know your brain is malleable, right? This is what I'm talking about. Your brain can actually, it's the neural pathways. And we have these pathways that are in us for so long, and they're generating all these different kinds of trajectories of our life. And maybe it is what we want, and maybe it's not what we want, but it's kind of happening without us being intentional about it. It's like it's just, well, this is what life is. This is what it is. But as soon as we start to say, I'm not sure about that, and we're going to plant new thought trails in there, it can start going different directions. Your thoughts actually have physical real estate. They actually look like trees. They grow these little, like this, and then they sprout off. So one thought here can be like sprouting all these other thoughts. And we go and we build new thought trees. And we reinforce those, and we nurture them, and we water them. And it ends up being like everything about our experience is different. This is why our minds create our reality. It's so crazy. I love it so much. Can you tell? So again, with the thoughts, the iceberg you can see above the water is your intentional thoughts. That's like the ones you know is happening, you can deal with. Below the water are all the unintentional ones that we don't know are there, but they are giving us shipwrecks all the time. Okay. All right. So the next thing we're going to talk about, I'm going to try and move right along here. The next thing we're going to talk about is our actions. Our actions. This is something that has been really revolutionary for me. When we think about what we do and how we act and what, like, okay, so here I am, and here I'm acting with the world, right? This is like what I bring out to the world. Our actions can go two different ways. They can either come out of this idea, this point of view that life is happening to us, right? We can act as though life is happening to me. I have no control. My kid's acting this way. My husband's not on board with this. My work's looking like this. All these things. We can act like life is happening to us. And by the way, it would be totally understandable if we did act that way, because most people do act that way. But there's another option. We can act as if life is happening for us. Instead of life happening to us, we can act and be present in this world as if life is happening for us. When we do that, okay, when we do that, it's like we put on different glasses. It's like we see people differently. If we're like, what am I trying? What is here that's supposed to be a gift for me? What in this scenario here is something that I'm supposed to learn something from? What in this scenario here is something that I can maybe exercise a muscle on that I've been needing to learn? Or what in this situation here is really a way for me to tap into my own needs so I can take care of myself? Do you see how that's a completely different energy? How the energy that we bring to life is in our power. It is in our power, and it is what actually starts to shift all the things outside of us, like how we come into life, how we stand in our space and our presence in the world, how we take care of all the things in our realm of ownership totally affects how we interact with the world. It totally affects how we treat people. It totally affects how we talk to people. It totally affects how we think about any situation that happens to us. This is a completely different energy that we can bring to life. And it's crazy. And it's really like when you start learning how to bring different energy to your life, it's almost like life becomes more fun, like more of a game. Like, I'm okay. This is an interesting situation I'm in. I wonder what I can do with this. I wonder what's here for me, right? It's totally different. And that's not to say that I'm definitely not trying to preach the sunshine and rainbows and happy positive thoughts all the time, right? Like that's not what life is actually about. What life is actually about is always both negative and positive. But what we can do is we can start to add value to the negative. And once we do that, instead of running from it and being scared of it and feeling like it's like controlling us in some way, that's where all the growth comes from. Your positive stuff in your life is like the reward and the reinforcements. And yes, it feels good. But the negative stuff is what actually makes you grow into the highest version of yourself. And the highest version of yourself has the most insanely awesome life ever, right? So it's all has benefit. There's benefit to all of it. So thoughts, feelings, actions. Okay. So we find peace when we learn how to practice these things, right? So I want to be very clear that like, this is like learning how to start a new exercise, right? If you were to just go into the gym and you'd never been into the gym before, and you picked up a barbell and you're like, what am I supposed to do with this? You wouldn't just automatically be able to know what you're doing, right? Your muscles have to grow. Your concept of how you do the exercises has to grow. It's all practice. Every single one of the things that we actually are able to get fully and move to a place of like betterment in our life always comes down to practice. It's repetition, it's practice, it's how we are built, it's our human brain. That's how it works, okay? So when we do that, when we know that, it makes us look at life a little bit differently, right? So you're not going to take all this information this week and just automatically go and like, oh, my family's awesome and I know what to do and I know how to find peace within myself. It doesn't work like that, right? You're going to have to practice and you're going to have to take every single little step as a way that's like, okay, this is another weight. This is exercising a different portion of muscle. This muscle has not been used before and I don't really know how to do this. So it's always about how are we practicing? How are we repeating things in order to get it into a natural state of living and get the kind of life that we want? And when we do that, that doesn't mean that we're alone in it. Okay, so this is like the last big thing that I really want to put out there. When we put so many things on ourselves, which we do all the time, it's like we're like, yeah, sure, I'll take that. I'll take that. Yeah, I'll take all this. I'll take all that. And then we end up being just like buried by it all, right? That's not at all. This is not more things that you have to learn how to do by yourself. That's not what this is. In fact, that really doesn't work. Okay, because what ends up happening is we end up becoming more prone to shaming ourselves, to feeling like we're failures, to feeling like it's not working for me. There must be something wrong with me. That's not the case. The truth of the matter is we were not meant to do these things alone. Every single one of us are supposed to be taking the hand of someone behind us that we are guiding through life, like our kids, right? And then taking the hand of someone in front of us who's been where we've been before, who has the tools, who knows what to do, who's walking beside us, and that's how we walk. I follow you, you follow me. That's how it goes. That's how we were built to be as human beings. Like that's how this is supposed to work. So when you're learning all these things and you're practicing all these things and you're saying, okay, I'm going to go out and I'm going to have a different life, you're going to run into brick walls that look like, okay, this doesn't work. Or it's just me. Or it's just my family. That's not the case. The case is you've run into an obstacle. Whose hand are you holding? They can tell you how to get around that obstacle. They can tell you what to do, right? This is what life is all about. And that's why Amanda has created this program. That's the entire purpose, because we know that throwing information at you and telling you to go figure it out doesn't work. You need to be in a situation where you are like, how do I do this? Where are the pointers? Where's my cheat sheets? I don't understand the situation, right? That's the point. That's the point of having a program like Amanda's offering, which is, by the way, an amazing program, and you should totally take her up on that. I'm inside of there. You'll get this kind of mindset and self-care training constantly, because what self-care is at the basis of it is this. It's how we're taking care of ourselves. I've lived by this for a long time. Like if you're standing with your 2 feet right here, like pretend that you're on concrete and you have a piece of white chalk and you're just going to draw space around you like a circle. You're like, okay, this is my space in the world. This is my place of ownership. This is mine to cherish and to hold and take care of. And this is where I find my centeredness. And this is where I find my calm. And this is where I find all the things that empower me to be better people for the rest of my family, for the rest of the people that are around me, right? So maybe you can take that little visual. It's a fun little visual. But this is the basis, this self space, right? This is the basis of how we get to peace. This is the core concept. So now it's just a matter of doing it. It's just a matter of how do I walk every step through my moments, through my life, through my days, with all my people who aren't going anywhere. How do I do this? How do I move in that direction? And who's going to help me? It's okay to realize that doing things by yourself is unsustainable. That's actually a really big place of empowerment. And that's something that, like, my life totally changed when I started bringing people into my life to coach me. I'll tell you that, like 100%, totally different life. So that's what we're talking about this week. That's what Amanda's been talking about all week. It's how to take this information, how do you put it into your life, and how do we do it with you, right? So, hi, some people are jumping on here. I'm actually wrapping up. That's the top level view of the stuff that is my personal expertise that I coach on. And if you missed this, you can go back and watch it and say hi and talk about put things in the comments that you hear me say that makes sense to you. That's what we've been talking about this entire time. So I want to remind you also that all of the videos from Amanda's workshop come down on Tuesday at midnight, and that is purposeful. It's so that you get in there and get all the good stuff that you possibly can out of it. So make sure that you go back and rewatch and take out whatever you can, glean whatever information you can while they're here. And if you are ready for it, I highly encourage you to join Amanda's program, because that's where you find, that is where you get the guidance. That's where all of the work actually starts to work. It's hard to do it by yourself. It is hard to do it by yourself, and the process is more confusing and it's slower. So I highly recommend that you get in Amanda's program. It is a really, really good deal to completely change your life and your family's, right? It's amazing. So that's what I got for you today. And it was so great. Thanks for everybody being on and talking to me on here. You guys have all been really, really good. And this whole workshop has been so much fun with you. So thanks for joining me today. I will be talking to you later. Bye, guys.